Welcome to this place made holy by gatherings such as the one we had yesterday, where we celebrated the life and the joy of Dee Hams, who was a hat-wearing, amazing singing woman who was with this congregation for many, many years. We also ring this peace bowl to affirm that these lands that we love, these lands where we love to hike, where the squirrels are now chasing each other around in some kind of mating behavior I don't quite understand, that these lands that we love are the ancestral lands of the Yavapai people, the Wipukepas, the Tolkepayas, the Quevkepayas, and the Yavapai. I imagine at special times of year, the Yavapai people walked up Granite Mountain for ceremonies. They gathered to affirm what was holy. Let us rise in body or spirit, and we will sing not what is in your program, which this was not, anyway. We are going to sing Gathered Here. It's an easier song that you know. So please rise in body or spirit, and the number is 389. For those of you who are standing behind a tall person. Wait. Oh, wait. This, just a moment. This has not been changed as we requested. So, you know the words. Okay, so don't pay attention to, no, we have a new slide now. Good. Gathered here in the mystery of this hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, spirit draw near. Okay? Want to hear it one more time? Let's do that. For me. Gathered here in the mystery of this hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, spirit draw near. Is that right? Okay. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, spirit draw near. Thank you, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome members, friends, and visitors to Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Warm greetings to all as our weather gets a little warmer each day. It's good to see you all this morning here in person and all of you there on Zoom. I'm Suki Jones, your worship associate this morning. I bet you didn't know that today, April 14th, for those of us who are retired and can never remember the date, today is April 14th, is Reach as High as You Can Day. Now, being vertically challenged, I do that on a regular basis. But this day encourages us to push our limits and venture out of our comfort zones. So consider our mission statement as a call for us to aim higher, bigger, and better. This is our mission statement. We are a compassionate spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. Now, looking out, I see a lot of handwritten name tags, so you either forgot your official badge today, or you're visiting us for the first time. So welcome to all of you that are here for the first time. We have a website, prescottuu.org, which is the go-to spot for information about us. The other go-to spot is Davis Hall, right across the foyer here, where we gather for coffee and snacks and great conversation. So we invite everybody back there for that time of socializing. And those on Zoom, you all get to go to your breakout rooms and have another fine conversation after you've gotten a refill on your coffee. This morning, we thank our pianist, Lena Hubin. And we have a new face, well, not face in the congregation, but face at the sound booth back there. Paul Bonnell is doing his first stint there. So let's all give him a hand of encouragement. And there was somebody else I was going to specifically mention, but I don't remember who now. But thank you to all of our Sunday morning volunteers, the ones who set up the coffee, the food, set up the room. We're grateful to all of the volunteers that we have. This would be a good time to set your phones on worship mode, including mine. Ouch. Okay, everybody good? We begin our service in the Unitarian Universalist tradition of lighting the chalice. Our chalice lighter this morning is Tefra Woodridge. We light this symbol of our faith today with these words from American Buddhist Jack Kornfield, the teacher that Reverend Patty studied during her sabbatical year, or her sabbatical this year, not the whole year sabbatical. So, take a breath, quiet your heart, and listen deeply. There is so much coming and going, and yet, feel how underneath it all is a vast silence and a spaciousness that holds everything in its balance. Feel the renewal of spring that can be born in you. Align yourself with goodness. Let yourself blossom like a lotus or whatever unique flower you are, shining in the world, offering tiny seeds of love amidst it all. Thank you, Tefra.
Thank you, Suki. And good morning, everyone. Good morning. Oh, that was good. These are beautiful days, and these are difficult days as we watch the Supreme Court of Arizona push women back to the Civil War times. And suffering continues to amplify in many places in the world. And from Alan Laughlin's window, he has this to report: the hummingbirds have returned. And I feel full of the joy of a new to UU class yesterday, where we talked about what brought us to Unitarian Universalism. I love these classes because they remind me of when I truly had beginner's mind. And I was wondering, would this be a place where I would feel comfortable? And then I found a place, a spiritual home that I felt aligned with who I was. I didn't have to put my fingers in my ears for any parts of the service. And I could feel, my heart could feel at rest. And during that class, we heard from some of our newer members. Alan and Phyllis Laughlin and Becky Beaupre talked about what they love about this community. And I hope you have a chance to meet Andy and Kim, Katie and Jeremiah, and their daughters, Dahlia, and is it Alice? And Alice, who I think are practicing mindfulness in our faith development classroom across the way. Sandra Palacios always looks at what I'm going to speak about, and she tries to align their class with that. And there are yoga mats laid out. And she just went and took my bell from my office, so they will be listening to that bell. Welcome to this multi-religious home. Today we are drawing wisdom from the Buddhist teachings of mindfulness. When the Dalai Lama is asked how he can remain so peaceful and non-reactive when his beautiful country of Tibet has experienced such difficulty, he points to his meditation practice, his meditation on compassion, of feeling compassion for ourselves, for others, and then spreading that out to be a meditation of compassion as a we, as all of us. He practices it a few hours every morning. I know that if the world did this practice, everything would change. I wonder how we could start that happening. We will start that happening right here with our opening song, May We Be Filled with Loving Kindness. Please rise in body or spirit and think of it not just as a song, but a way to change the world, to change everything. Let us rise. We missed the first verse, which is may I, and then it's may you, and then it's may we. But we sang may we twice, and that's quite appropriate. So I invite you to think of those words during the week. When things are stressful, those are good words to come back to. It's okay, we could do it at the end. Please join me in saying our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation, the quest for truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant together. And now, in the spirit of mindfulness, we enter the mindful part of our service. Let us listen to the sound of the bell, and I invite you into your heart that at times is so full of so many things, sometimes racked with sorrow and sometimes filled with joy. Let us breathe together. Breathe in, breathe out. Let us remember that feeling of our feet on the ground. Perhaps it's a forest, spongy ground of fallen leaves and needles. Perhaps it is the land by the sea that is sandy or rocky, or perhaps it's the top of a granite mountain you have struggled to rise through. We each hold in our hearts and minds the joys and sorrows of those who are around us, our own struggles with being human, with illnesses, wondering what the next days will bring, the many who struggle with food insecurity, wondering how they will pay rent, and those who struggle with the big questions of where our earth is moving. Will we be able to turn back the tides of climate change and save this earth? So many things we carry with us. And we hold these things as we come to this community. We hold the many wars that are raging through this earth. We hold leaders and ask them to take a pause with us. We hold in this community Diane Harper, Lee and Craig Phillips, Levon Gappa Levy, Daryl Levy, and the many others who are struggling with things. We hold them in the arms of this community. I now invite you into a time when we listen to meditative music and hold this time together as we listen to Lena's playing. I invite you to come up. We also hold happiness because Ria's son John is recuperating well from open heart surgery, and Bud Landon is, I can't read. He is welcoming each day? Struggling, okay. He is struggling with each day. He is in the last weeks of his life, a beloved of Ria. So we hold all these things, and if there's someone you would like me to mention, as you come up to put a stone, just come and tell me. But let us enter into that time together. We also hold Sean Carley and Mel Ditzler, who were in a car accident this past week with no physical injuries but mental angst. And we hold them in the arms of this community. And also Zoe's father's dear friend Garland lost his son this week, Elijah. And those of you, and there are many in the congregation, in the village where we lived, they would always say, that is the most difficult sorrow, to lose a child. Please join me in a spirit of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life, we are here, fully human, experiencing our lives with all of the many joys and sorrows that happen with our years. We ask for comfort. We ask to be present to the suffering of others. We ask for joy, to be present to the joy that is within our reach. We ask for wisdom of leaders, wisdom and hope for peace in the many places on this earth that are at war. We ask for leaders who will sit with one another and consider stopping the suffering that is within their hands to stop. In your many names we pray. Amen. I invite us now we will stay seated as we sing Spirit of Life.
As we prepare to gather the offering this morning, let us give thanks for the many blessings we've received in our lives together. Let us acknowledge the generosity of spirit expressed through this offering, and may we flourish with the benefit of all that we share together. May this generosity spread even wider as we give back to the greater community through our Seeds of Support program. This month's recipient is Step Up for Kids. You can read about them in your order of service on the slide here, which I see many of you have already been doing. And it's in your order of service. To give online, the link is available in the chat, or you can also go to our website. Please enjoy our offertory music this morning that has such a spring-like title, Buds and Blossoms. know about you all, but I just wanted to hop around like a bunny to that music. But I didn't. What is given in love is received in gratitude. Blessed be.
As Suki said in her opening words, during the month of February, I dove into mindfulness training, and it was led by wonderful teachers, Tara Brock and Jack Cornfield. I don't know them personally. It was all online, and it was wonderful. Early into that study, one of the teachers described the mind not as this small place, even if we have large heads. The inside of our cranium is still a rather small place. And they described our minds not as something that lives in here, but something that is as big as the sky. And into that infinite space, our thoughts float like clouds. So let's take a deep breath together. I want you to close your eyes. I'm going to ring this again. And as you listen, I want you to close your eyes and take some deep breaths. And feel your mind open up to the sky, that huge place that I feel is so beautiful in the West, so visible, so huge. A spring sky with ever-changing clouds, clouds that are moving through, clouds that will catch the light of the sunset later today. Clouds that create an ever-changing scene. So as we think of our minds as this great and open space, I invite you not to think about, words are really hard in this. I invite you to consider when a thought comes to your mind, think of it as a cloud. Instead of following what it says, like, what are we having for treats after the service? I can smell the coffee. Is that coffee I'm smelling? I wonder how my friend is doing. How is my niece doing? Or my grandson? Or my father? Or my father's friend who's just lost a child? Or my beloved didn't seem well this morning. Oh gosh, I wonder if I'll be able to pay my rent this week. Will my grandson end up in prison? All of those thoughts. But instead of following one of those, racing into Davis Hall to see if the scent of coffee is real, or going down one of those rabbit holes about the next election and becoming more and more agitated, I invite you into that sky, the space of a sky. And when a thought comes in, think of it as a cloud with one of those amazing shapes. I often see angels in the sky, birds with wings. And allow that thought that bird to fly through your mind. Notice your breathing. Let us breathe in, out. And now I invite you to come back, because I can't really give you my sermon when you're not accepting thoughts. So I knew this would be tricky. But the mindfulness teachers, these wonderful teachers I experienced, asked us simply to notice that the thought came in, not the content of the thought, but that the thought came in, and then surprisingly for me, because I had always, when I tried meditation, I always either did the sumo wrestler thing. Do you know the sumo wrestler thing? You take the thought and you throw it over you. They also do that in other things, I imagine, but that is a thing that they talk about in Japan, about moving things over you. But instead of doing that or wrestling with it, you accept it. You accept it, but you keep a distance. And instead of trying to understand what the thought is, you say, thinking. For me, what was most appropriate to say was hashing over. You can find one that's just for you, that maybe it's the usual kind of thought that comes through. Maybe it's fear of the future, but get some distance from it and just let it pass through. Because if you don't pay attention to what it's trying to tell you, what it's knocking at your head about, eventually it will move across that great and marvelous sky, and maybe even move up into the universe and catch hold of a star and go very far away. Of course, I recognize there are some thoughts we need to pay attention to, like, is that smoke? But so much of what passes through our minds is not worthy of our attention. And it can only lead us on a journey that is a complete waste of time. How many of you have been on such a journey? I learned that when I was in university, and I was going out with this man who I found extremely annoying, because he noticed when I was absent. He noticed when a thought was taking me far away, and he would always say, "Penny for your thoughts," which I find quite annoying. Please never do that. But I think we need to notice, we need to have that voice within us that notices when we go far away. Mary Lou's much better. She says, "Where are you?" Thoughts can take us so far away, because it can lead us on this journey that is a waste of time. I've experienced most of the time, I'd say 99% of the journeys that my thoughts take me on are a complete waste of time. But the other thing that does to us, when we catch hold of them, we pay attention to them, we follow them around, the big damage that is underlying all of that is that it takes us away from this moment. It takes us away from the person sitting next to us. It makes us impossible to make friends with a new person who might be near us, because we are, oh, so far away. And sometimes our thoughts are just simply wrong. I learned this early in life. I was around 12, and our family had just returned to the United States. And one day, my mother talked about Mount Rushmore. I can't remember why. It might have been because a family vacation was going to take us through there, but I was certain I'd been there before. By that time, I'm sure I had seen pictures of Mount Rushmore, and I had been in places where there were big stone carvings. So that went together in my mind, and I can't tell you how certain I was. I can remember that feeling of certainty that I had been, and my mother and I had an argument. But of course, my mother won because she would have, or my father would have been the ones driving the car to Mount Rushmore, and they had no memory of it at all. And that is the realm of memory, which I imagine, how many of you have remembered falsely? Some of you not? I want to be your friend. But most of us would agree that memory is a sketchy place. There are interesting books being written about how our memories can change from our childhood, that we might remember something that actually never happened, like my Mount Rushmore. Our mind can be very selective of what we remember and how we remember. In Braiding Sweetgrass, botany professor Robin Wall Kimmerer writes of how false thoughts that were believed by scientists turned into great theories and ways to look at the world that now people are rethinking because those theories separated us from the natural world, kept us from seeing how closely we were connected with the planet and with the animal and the plant life around us. And in this moment of history, our survival depends on a different way of thinking. It depends on solutions, ways of being in this world that recognize and hold sacred that interconnectedness that was missing from those theories. Thich Nhat Hanh gives us even a more personal reason not to believe everything we think. My title for my sermon came from Tara Brach, who said she had a t-shirt that said, "Don't believe everything you think." But this is what Thich Nhat Hanh says about this. According to the teaching of the Buddha, our notion of happiness may be the obstacle to our happiness. Because of that notion, we may remain unhappy for our entire lives. That is why it is so crucial to remove that notion of happiness. Then you have the opportunity to open the door to true happiness, which already exists inside and around us. If you are committed to one idea of happiness, then you are caught. You may not be happy all your life. You think that if your idea cannot be realized, then happiness will never be possible. That is why this notion is an obstacle, because there are many ways to be happy, but you are committed to only one way. That is a loss. A young person may say, if I can't marry that person, it's better to die, because happiness cannot be possible without that person. But you don't have to die. There are other ways to be happy. But because you are only committed to one idea, that happiness is only possible with this person. An individual or a nation may adopt an idea of happiness. Here, A group of people believes that if only their country could realize certain ideas, and I want you to be thinking of this about yourself, not just about the ideas other people have, but they think that if only their country could realize certain ideas, the whole country would be extremely happy. That idea may be a doctrine of economics or theology, or it may be an ideology. The nation believes so much in this idea at any cost that they would oppose any other idea concerning happiness, and they would become totalitarian in their approach to happiness. There may be a government or a party which will use its strength to promote and to make that idea of happiness real. It may be that the nation has to spend 70 to 100 years trying out that idea of happiness. And during that time, they may cause a great deal of tragedy among its citizens and make them suffer so much just because they believe it's the only way to be happy. The Soviet Union, he wrote, put people in psychiatric hospitals because these people didn't share the same idea of happiness. And they sacrificed a lot of people, a lot of true happiness, to follow their idea of happiness. So I wonder, what is your idea of happiness? Do you have an idea? Is there something you think of that you think, if this happens, then I will be happy? I wonder how much true happiness we have sacrificed to follow our idea of happiness. My grandmother became keenly aware of this when her husband, my Papa Brown, died. He was an in-the-moment, happy, kind person, and she was driven to get things done, to get meals cooked, things cleaned up, a painting finished, a book written, correspondence done. And in writing this, I recognize myself in her. I'm much more like her than I am my grandfather. And when her husband died, she was still in her 60s, and she was bereft. She had these dark circles under her eyes, and I would visit her. She lived near where I was going to university, and I would hear her sobbing at night. She described his death as a betrayal. She would say, "When Frank left me." Her biggest regret, though, was remembering his voice, calling her from the other room, saying, "Delilah, would you come and watch the sunset with me?" She said, "I almost always told him that I'd be there in a minute, but of course I got caught up in whatever I was doing." She would have given anything to share a sunset with him. As Thich Nhat Hanh said, it is crucial to remove your notion of happiness because it gives you the opportunity to open the door to true happiness, which already exists inside and around us. So I wonder, how can we practice this in our everyday life? I believe that in order to experience that happiness that already exists inside and around us, we have to find a way to be present. And that means learning how to treat those thoughts differently. Treat them more like clouds that are flying across our sky. In my meditation practice, and the word practice is key, that was one thing they kept saying to us, you have to practice. I always sit and imagine my mind as big as the sky. And I invite you back into that moment we began at the beginning. Sit comfortably in the chair that you are sitting in. Relax your shoulders. Perhaps even half close your eyes. And other thing that these teachers asked us, could you manage a little bit of a smile? Imagine that your mind is as big as the sky, and as thoughts come, simply acknowledge and even welcome the thought with a smile. Hello, thought. Thinking, hashing over. Don't follow the thought or check it out, and don't push it away. Just recognize it, welcome it, and then let it float by. Let's breathe in and breathe out. If another thought is coming, don't get into what it's trying to say. Simply acknowledge it. A thought has arrived, welcome, and allow the thought to move through. And now I'll welcome you back again. This may feel kind of like you're being jerked in and around, but I'm trying to have you have somewhat of an experience of this as you're listening to my thoughts. I believe that kind of practice, or a practice that you have that has a similar effect, will help us when a big, difficult thought arrives at the wrong moment. A thought that is less like a cloud and more like one of those wartime dirigibles. In Prescott, that can happen. It can happen when we see a bumper sticker, a flag, or a t-shirt that makes us angry, or something that makes you leap to a thought about the humans connected with whatever that is. Or when the Supreme Court of Arizona takes the rights of women back to the Civil War time. We have rough moments here, and I believe that those rough moments can take us on some pretty scary bronco rides, which in scientific terms are the release of hormones like cortisol that are so bad for our health, and take us out of the present moment and into a kind of trance of unhappiness. Our thoughts, and I have experienced this, can transform a neighbor with whom we have been exchanging friendly smiles into an enemy. Mindfulness invites us into encountering these thoughts differently. Instead of jumping onto that bronco, which is a very dangerous thing, my father did it as a teen and had back problems from it. But instead of jumping on that bronco and staying on it until our bodies and minds are sore, take a pause. Notice your thought. Treat it like those thoughts that arrive during a practice. Thinking. Don't push the thought away. Do some kind of wrestle with it. That only strengthens the thought. Acknowledge that there is a thought and then let it move away. Breathe. Be present to the moment. And that will make you present to the joy that is waiting. And I wonder, isn't this the change that I'm asking of you? Isn't this the change we want to see in this world? Instead of all the reactivity between countries, within countries that leads to the suffering of war, of children left without parents, parents robbed of their children, what if the leaders took a pause and let their reactive thought go? And what if in that pause, in that big place as big as the sky, they could feel the reality, the true reality of the interconnectedness of the universe? And feel that knowledge that by hurting others, we are hurting ourselves. By not reacting, by keeping ourselves in this moment, we are opening our eyes to the possibilities of that door that stands before us, always before us, that door to peace, that door to true happiness, which already exists inside and around us. Amen. And may it be so. And I invite you to rise in body or spirit, and we will sing. This is another good image to think of. There's a river flowing in my soul. And I say body or soul, rise in body or soul, because for some of you, it's difficult to rise. You can stay where you are, and your soul will be rising. So rise in body or spirit, and we will sing together. Thank you. May we find many times during this week to practice extending our mind upward and into and creating a large place for these clouds to pass. We have an opportunity at 1 o'clock today at Courthouse Plaza to practice not being reactive and to to practice being numbered, for sometimes numbers in this place are very important. May we engage in this practice, and may the peace and the joy that is possible be opened. May we see what is in this moment. Amen, and may it be so. And now we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now is the time for those of you who you have a minute to consider whether if you're new to us or coming back after a long time, if you would like to introduce yourselves to us. And we have one announcement, and that is that the dinners for 8, which is a great chance if you're checking out our community, it's a great chance to have conversations with people. Those are still open, and in Davis Hall you'll be able to write things down. And also, Kelsey is going to have posters and markers in Davis Hall for you to make signs if you want to be carrying a sign, if you're going today to the Courthouse Plaza to protest what the Arizona Supreme Court did, which was striking the laws to do with abortion back to the time of the Civil War. We have lots of chances for mindfulness. And I want you to know, I have a minister friend who lives in Vermont. And when I talk with him, he said, "You have so many more chances to practice Unitarian Universalism than we do in Vermont." So on the bright side, we're really lucky. So here we go. Would anyone out there would you like to introduce yourselves? Oh, great.
I'm Katie Bode. I am a member of the Surprise.
Oh,
We have just now changed our name. We have Congregation instead of Church.
oh,
In Stonebridge during the summer, and I have with me my neighbor family there.
great. Welcome, welcome. Wonderful. Is there anyone else who'd like to introduce themselves? Is Shasta here? Shasta, I thought you were going to be here. And welcome to you on Zoom. I think Dawn is on Zoom, and Karen. Okay, welcome to all of you. I'm going to try to see you all so everyone will know who is with us. Okay, Kim is on Zoom. You'll have to come so everybody can meet you, Kim. And Tony and Sandy. And there's Anna Bess and Jim. I can see Jim's foot, but not his face. And Tom and Paula Burrows and Karen Hagberg. And Martin is there, and Vlesta, and Drew Potter, and Steve Apple. Okay, so now you can follow the thought you had about coffee. But wait till I get back there.